Hello again and thank you for joining me. So today I thought I would show you some of the mistakes that I've made while learning to use colour pencils. I've only been using these guys for about 3 years, so I am by no means an expert at this point. But I can sure show you many colour pencil don'ts that I have learnt along the way. And hopefully I can help you sort of try and avoid some of these mistakes. Okay, so no how not to video would be complete without embarrassing examples, so here are some of my first colour pencil pieces. My first tip is to stay away from bad paper. I think you can get away with cheaper pencils for a while you decide whether you enjoy the medium enough to invest a lot of money. But bad paper is going to cause you nothing but frustration and misery. Two big no-nos are your printer paper or these little sketchbooks sold to students. Now, this is what I started with and that's what these are made of. But you can see though that even though I blended and buffed and rubbed as hard as I could, the pencil never really got into the paper. The paper in these students' diaries has a really strange texture and a funny slickness to them, and it's a surface that's incredibly frustrating. Why do we make students use these? There must be high school students everywhere wondering what they're doing wrong. It's not you guys, it's the paper. Now, while the printer paper and those visual arts diaries are the only things that I'd really consider bad paper, there certainly is the wrong paper to use. This piece was one of the first pieces I tried using watercolour paper. I'd seen everybody recommending all kinds of watercolour paper, so I thought I'd give it a go. And at this point I didn't realise there were different kinds of watercolour paper, so I went out and bought a big old pad of cold press watercolour paper. Now, you wouldn't believe the difficulty I had trying to get my pencil to fill in all the little holes in that paper. This piece took me forever and it was never going to look the way I wanted it to. This was nothing but frustration and misery. On the other hand, I've got another piece here which this was actually a pretty good supposed to pastel paper that was supposed to have some texture, but I could only get one layer of pencil onto this. Once there was any pencil onto here, this would not accept any more. So you do need something between a lot of texture and no texture. Now, each colour pencil artist finds their own preference for surface, and unfortunately you can only really discover that for yourself through trial and error. Although essentially you're looking for a nice sturdy paper with a slight bit of tooth or texture so that that pencil has something to layer onto. It can be worth asking for samples from your local art shop. Sometimes, like in these cases here, you will know very quickly that a paper is not for you. Other times you may have to buy a full sheet to try out a surface. My favourite paper so far is the Fabriano Academia paper, which is a nice sturdy drawing paper. It's got a nice solid surface and it's not very spongy, and it's got a tooth that I really enjoy. This is absolutely rubbish for wet mediums, so any mixed medium work is out of the question, but it takes the mineral thinners that I use like an absolute champion, and it only cost me $2 a sheet. My second big don't is a rushed or inaccurate drawing, and I am so guilty of this on definitely more than one occasion. Sometimes when you're really excited about a project, it can be really easy to rush over that initial drawing to try and get to the colour, and this generally won't end well. You can see here in this piece that I did not take the time to draw this tiger's face out correctly, and it's resulted in a strangely cross-eyed, sideways-jawed tiger. Now, if this was a painting, I could paint over my mistakes when I saw them, but with colour pencil, there's really no effective way to erase these mistakes or go over them. You have to get the drawing right the first time. This poor fellow's really gone on to my wall of shame, and it took me a long time before I drew a tiger that I was finally happy with. My third tip is to try not to press too hard. It can be very easy as you get involved into a piece to start pressing down really hard with your pencil. I'm actually really heavy-handed, and this is something that I constantly have to work on even now. You can see here on this piece where, even though I was using a decent brand of paper, I crushed it to death with my first layers of pencil. And this has resulted in a really streaky appearance and some very flat colour. as I couldn't add any more layers to this background. This poor paper just couldn't take any more. If you find yourself pressing too hard, I found it easier to lighten up by sort of deliberately holding my pencil further down from the tip. This means that you just can't put that pressure on the tip. Pressing down too hard can be a really difficult habit to break, well, especially for me, but your paper and your wrists will thank you. My fourth tip is to avoid rushing to complete a piece. Colour pencil is a very time-consuming medium, and it can be very hard to maintain focus and motivation through a whole piece. I've been guilty of this on many occasions, especially when it comes to the backgrounds or to any part of the picture that isn't particularly exciting me. I certainly did this with this piece. I paid a lot of attention to the textures and the towels and the shine on the sunglasses because that was the element of the picture that was really exciting me at the time. But when it came time for me to do the sand and for the book, I was really unsure about what colours to use and how I was going to get the texture that I was looking for. So instead of slowing down and taking my time, I ran through it like a scared little girl, just scribbling and just trying to get it done so I could have a finished result. Unfortunately, by rushing through the sections like this, I've dragged down the quality of the whole piece. It wouldn't have mattered how magnificently I had captured those sunglasses when they're sitting on a poorly constructed and rushed book. As the saying goes, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and so your art is only as good as its weakest area. It really is worth taking the time to slow down and complete each area to the best of your ability. My last tip is to avoid bad posture. It wouldn't seem like it, but it's really easy to cause yourself quite a bit of pain while drawing, especially while using a time-consuming medium like colour pencils. As you find yourself absorbed in the process of creating a piece, it can be really easy to find yourself slouching over your work and leaning in towards your piece. And maybe leaning in a little bit further. And maybe if you're short-sighted like me, even a little bit further. I have gotten up from a piece to find I have caused myself some incredible pain in my neck and shoulders from slouching over my work. Of course, having a camera overhead helps now, as I have to keep my big old head out of the way, but I would advise anyone who is drawing for any length of time to really consider their posture. I have found that sitting on an exercise ball while I'm working can help me keep my back straight while I'm working, and many artists find that working at an incline or vertically like you would in an easel can be quite helpful. Of course, I'm not qualified to give much advice on this topic, but I don't think you should have to cause yourself great pain to create great art. It's worth taking the time to consider your own habits and posture as you work. So there you have it. That's my top 5 list of things that beginner colour pencil artists should try to avoid as they work. Now, it's easy for me to look back on my older pieces to see where I went wrong, and of course making all of these mistakes are a part of the learning process. Hopefully by sharing these mistakes with you helps you avoid making some of them in your own work and steers you towards making your own masterpieces sooner. I hope you found this helpful. Please leave a like or a comment to tell me what you think, and if you'd like to see more of my work, why not hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, guys.